online, and on your smart speaker. It's the Jason Gregor Show on Edmonton Sports Leader, TSN 1260.
Greg from Strud, Hunter Halley with you on a lovely Thursday afternoon. It's game day. Oilers taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets, looking to end what has been an ugly 6-game losing streak. Blue Jackets 2-6-1 from their last 9. So Oilers actually 3-6, but their last 6. Offense is dried up. Heck, even David, for his standards, only 3 points in the last 5 games. Him and Draisaitl looking to get off the schneid a little bit. We'll see if that happens tonight. Obviously, there's pretty much every player on the team looking to get off the schneid tonight. Let's get to the racing report brought to you by CanTorque, where you can schedule a tour of their headquarters to see their made-in-Canada hydraulic wrenches, how they outperform other manufacturers' tools, and how CanTorque supports their customers. Arrange a tour by giving them a call at 780-974-7474. As I like to say, 9 triple Skinner. Check it out. Colin Livingston joins us. And Colin, the race that everybody was talking about, of course, F1. And I know you've been watching Bill for 25 years, lots of racing. And I think the biggest complaint people had was that, you know, it was like the stewards that said, okay, you know what? We don't want this race to end in a caution, which I understand Indy and NASCAR have those rules in place, you know, white, green, checkered, so it doesn't happen. And there is a kind of a strange rule that claims that they can override stuff, but then it also claims, like, they kind of contradicted themselves a little bit. But today, Mercedes came out, they dropped their appeal. They said, you know what? What's done is done. We move on. How do you think they can ensure this doesn't happen again?
Well, I mean, first of all, this is about the first I'm going to be talking about this. The finish to the race really, really bothered me. I've been actually pretty grumpy all week because it's so unfortunate that everyone is talking about F1 this year. And, you know, the Netflix special got everyone excited and got, you know, so many people, you know, watching this sport, excited for it. It was a great battle. And because of such a silly set of circumstances, how do you tell one of these drivers that they're not the world champion at this point? Like, Hamilton did not do a thing wrong, and race control made a decision. Now, to be fair and to be clear, that when you're making decisions in real time, it is not always easy, and it's never easy for these guys to make, you know, quote unquote, the right decision. But, you know, for people who didn't see the race, you know, essentially what happened is 2 drivers went into the final tied on points. So, you know, super long season, the longest season F1's ever had, which will be eclipsed next year, equal on points, with Max Verstappen having the edge in wins. So if for whatever reason they took each other out, Max ends up defaulting as the winner, you know, based on the amount of wins he had in the season. But Hamilton and Mercedes really dominated. So going back to qualifying, Max pulled out another superhuman lap, managed to take the pole, but he made a mistake in the second qualifying session. And the second qualifying session is where your tire selection is determined. Max made a mistake on the set of tires. He cooked them. He flat spotted them on his fastest lap at that point, which meant he was going to have to start the race on those tires. They had to go back out, requalify on soft tires, which wasn't their first choice. They made another compromise on the car running this low downforce rear wing. So the lack of downforce was going to be okay for qualifying, but it was going to hurt them in the race. And they couldn't change back until after the race started. They could make an adjustment on a pit stop, but they made a massive gamble in qualifying after Max made that mistake. They should have had the lead after turn 1, and somehow Lewis and Mercedes found this way. Like, their starts the last couple of races have been mind-boggling good. Lewis started on the dirty side of the track, on harder tires, on older tires, and managed to clip Max. He was controlling the race, pulled away, opened up a big lead. And, for anyone who didn't know, there was an accident, unfortunately involved Canadian driver Nicholas Latifi, who's getting a lot of negative attention because of this. He got into an incident with Mick Schumacher that damaged his car, went into a corner, lost control with, probably what was a flat tire. And that's what caused this set of circumstances where the FIA kind of contradicted tradition and contradicted their own rule that said, when the race director decides to let the lap down cars go, you've got to let all the lap cars go. And what the director did was only let the cars that were between Hamilton and Verstappen go, so that they were on, they were basically nose to tail, which isn't really fair because Hamilton had to pass those cars on track under green flag conditions. Now, with the benefit of blue flags, which means that those guys eventually had to pull over, but Hamilton had a massive gap until he had to start working through those guys. He worked through those guys. It was going to be Verstappen's goal to get through those guys. And what happened is when the caution came out, Hamilton was basically at pit entry. So they didn't have time to react to get Hamilton into the pits, and it gave Red Bull a free pit stop. So they knew that they were coming in. And last week in Saudi Arabia, it also worked against Mercedes, where they stayed out, or no, they came into pit, pardon me. Red Bull stayed out, red flag came in, and then they were able to make a free pit stop under that red flag condition. Now, there's all kinds of arguments that people are making that the red flag should have come out. Realistically, the only fair thing to do is if the FIA would have stuck to their guns, they would have let all the lap cars go through, which would have taken some time. There would have been one more lap, and then they throw the green, which would have meant the race was over. Or they keep those lap cars where they are because Hamilton had to pass them. It gives Verstappen the same set of circumstances, even though he's on new tires. So in any set of circumstances that you do this thing, Hamilton wins the championship, but that's not what happened. And, because of I don't think Red Bull can really feel all that confident knowing that they won the thing. They did a great job throughout the year. I had to sit back and really think of what I thought would have the only fair situation would have been to assign co-world champions, which has never happened. And this is the one season that's happened in Formula One where that would have been justified. Red Bull didn't do anything wrong. Mercedes didn't do anything wrong. A decision that was made in the heat of battle really affected Lewis the wrong way. And now we've got I don't know. I think it would have been the only fair thing. Now, Mercedes decided they're going to drop it because they're under incredible pressure, that they don't want to appear to be poor sports, and they don't want to appear to be, a certain thing. And I believe, I have absolutely no evidence or no indication, but I believe that for them dropping this, they've got some concession from the FIA and from Formula One going forward, that they're going to have something that nobody's going to know about that's going to work to their benefit. Because for them to just roll over at this point, at the very least, if they went to fight, I believe that they would have won their case. It's in a legal battle. There's not a lot of argument against the fact that what happened really worked against them. There's no precedent for it. But I don't think they want to look to be those poor sports, and for them to just roll over now, I believe they got some kind of concession. So we'll see what happens. It's going to make next year even that much more exciting.
Talking racing, including F1 with the CanTorque Race Report and Colin Livingston. Colin, I can tell that you're really, you're unsettled by this whole situation. So, no one wants to see this happen again. There has to be a different chain of protocol, starting with the race director, who has the authority to kind of wave those lap cars through, or what needs to happen to make sure that there's
maybe a second or third quick vetting process to get this right if it were to happen again?
So to be fair to the race director, the guy's name is Michael Massey. He took over from one of the most popular, like universally popular race directors, Charlie Whiting, who passed away a couple of years ago. Michael Massey needs help. And, you know, if you spend any amount of time looking at the online posts and the stories and all that's come out from this, it's impossible to blame Michael Massey, even though he was the one that made the decision. His job is way more than just race director. He has all kinds of weekly obligations for the FIA. And in short, what he needs is help. He needs a second in command. He needs like a right-hand man, right-hand person that will be a sober second thought for when you have to make these decisions in real time. And, you know, like he's just flat out overwhelmed and overloaded. This is part of what has to happen. And the FIA announced earlier today, they're going to launch their own investigation, which is, you know, somebody else put it is like the FIA kind of checking their own homework, which isn't really the most conducive thing in the world. But they're going to be reviewing this. And they added a really specific caveat that said to help improve things from 2022 going forward. So there's really no, you know, at this point, there's no going back from what happened. And, you know, you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. You know, at the end of the day, again, you know, Red Bull and Verstappen didn't do anything wrong. They shouldn't be penalized. I don't think Lewis should have been penalized because a world championship is not something that just falls out of the sky. This is the entirety of what these guys' whole life is built around. And, you know, it's not fair, but it's also a lesson in racing. Like things happen, you know, they're out of your control. The real disappointing thing is they did nothing wrong. Like Lewis was far and away the fastest car on the track. The only thing that beat him was, you know, 35 lap newer tires that were on a better compound than what he didn't have a chance. Once that decision was made, he was a sitting duck.
Colin Livingston joined us. Why would they have just put a red flag out after the Latifi crash?
It's easy to say that now. They actually predetermined that at that specific corner, two cars went off. Kimi Räikkönen also retired after this race, so farewell to the Iceman. He tagged the wall in that same corner 14, as did Valtteri Bottas, who is now left Mercedes and joined Alfa Romeo. They said before the event that a crash in that corner would not result in a red flag. Now, there wasn't any rationale to why, but had they done that, again, the outcome would have been Hamilton wins and, you know, or you know, we won't really know, but on equal tires, Hamilton showed that he could get away from Verstappen, wouldn't have been able to catch him. And, you know, the only thing that could have potentially upset that balance would be, you know, Max making a ludicrous stab and the two getting crashed out. But, you know, again, nobody will be able to say that Max had anything for Lewis on that day. Mercedes really upped their game the last 4 races of the year. They really closed that gap and they were the fastest car towards the end. But this is what, you know, the way it unfolded, I don't think is fair, but this is still what's, you know, what I prefer about the F1 system to say the NASCAR system. It's built on the whole year's worth of activity. Even, you know, if this was NASCAR, Lewis would have won hands down because it would have been, you know, sleeve down and it was just on the last day that things would have counted. But, you know, again, you know, congratulations to Max and to Red Bull. You know, it's such a shame for Mercedes and Hamilton and hopefully these guys can come back.
Colin, you know, it was an amazing year of racing, and you kept us abreast of it the whole time. But what's the most intriguing storyline heading into this, you know, this now off season, I suppose, other than Sir Lewis Hamilton being knighted by Prince Charles?
Well, not a bad way to bounce back, you know, 2 days after the grand final to be knighted. Obviously the big thing next year is going to be the new car. And hopefully what we're being promised with the new aero package, the cars are going to be able to follow closer. They're not going to, you know, lose so much of their downforce. We should be able to see which drivers are really the best drivers. Don't make any mistake that the engine's still going to, really have a lot to do with it. Mercedes's engine was amazing. Red Bull is taking over for Honda now, so not sure if anything's going to get lost in that translation, but yeah, definitely going to be the car next year. And, hopefully it's going to be good, hard racing, not so much, coloring outside of the lines as we saw towards the middle and end of this year.
Colin, quickly, James Hinchcliffe is out of Indy. He is going to go to the broadcast booth.
Yep.
Do you see him being that full? Is he going to race? Can you race part-time at all, or do you think he's now 100% done?
From what I understand, he can still race, just not an Indycar. And I don't think he really wants to. It's way too much money to be raised for almost no payback. So what's funny or ironic is that Hinch is replacing Paul Tracy, who was not renewed for this year. So we got one Canadian replacing another. Hinch is not going to be the controversial, kind of self-serving kind of person that PT was. And I'm not trying to pick on Paul, but Paul spent a lot of time making the broadcast either about himself or trying to ruffle feathers. Hinch is obviously going to be a little bit more man of the people style. So I think it's going to be a little bit more pleasant to watch with Lee Diffie and Townsend Bell. He's going to do a great job. Again, he announced his retirement and then announced his rehirement 24 hours apart. So, not exactly all that shocking, but no, I think he's going to make the broadcast a lot better next year. Awesome.
Next week, I want to get into maybe something that people don't understand about the challenges of racing F1 and a certain physical requirement that most of us probably overlook. So we'll get to that next week. Colin, have a good one. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks a lot.
Livingston in the Racing Report.